Embarking on a journey towards enlightenment has revealed something very profound to me. Now, when I say this, I don't mean that I'm enlightened by any stretch of the imagination, but I am trying to go towards that. Now, we should also define what enlightenment means, at least for me. And that is a state of unconditional joy regardless of external factors, right? It doesn't mean that you don't have challenges. It just means you have ways to cope with it and can, maintain your happiness regardless of what is happening within the outside world. And to attain this enlightenment, the reason why it's so hard, as I'm coming to learn, is because of how brutally honest one has to be with themselves in order to get to enlightenment. Enlightenment really is self-discovery and finding out all the things that are blocking you from that essentially pure nature. And oftentimes, it's easier to externalize, right? We'd like to think that it's someone else's fault. Well, the thing of it is, something can be someone else's fault, but still your responsibility. I mean, here's a very grim example. You can get hit driving, and it could be on 100% somebody else's fault. But if you're paralyzed, it's your responsibility to deal with your now paralyzation and how you move about the world. Will you be defeated by it? Or, will you accept it as is and move forward with the best life that you can under those circumstances, right? And this sort of self-accountability is no easy feat. And the reason for that is, as I'm mentioning and hinting at, is that it's about confronting one's inner darkness. And in many ways addressing our karma, as many cultures, look at and think. But the encouraging news is, if there is some to this, is that during these, dark moments and as we look inward, any dark thoughts that may arise aren't really what ultimately matter. It's our actions that reveal to us who we truly are. Now, of course, we're all human for both good and bad, but we should also remind ourselves for the good. And so if we misstep, that's a single act versus the totality of us as a human being. So if you overall move towards the goodness and your actions try to represent that, then have a little grace with yourself. And in fact, any journey towards enlightenment begins with the idea of letting go of overthinking and trusting that the universe, has and will support your path towards that journey. Now, as I opened up in terms of about enlightenment, it doesn't mean it's gravy and it's going to be easy. But the support can be there if you choose to believe it. It's up to you. I mean, that's the whole crux of David Foster Wallace's very famous speech, "This is Water," that we get to choose how we see the world. We could either see it through negativity or positivity and anything in between. But the problem is, in terms of the world, many people shy away from the depths of their inner darkness because of how difficult it is. And they prefer the surface level spirituality of things, right? And I think that's very evident in the world. In fact, some people use spirituality as a negation of negation. They'll masquerade spirituality when in reality they're doing something completely heinous because they're avoiding that inner darkness to understand, wait, this is actually shitty. But it also raises the question of why this darkness exists in the first place. Well, any darkness, whether our own or the world's, exists as a catalyst, a wake-up call that urges us to find the infinite light within us and bring it out into the world. So it's an arduous path, and it's a very nebulous path, but it is worth pursuing, at least it is for me. And I hope just by this explanation, it encourages a little bit within you. And I get that it's not the rah, rah, rah sort of gung-ho inspiration you might be looking for. But I want you to know the truth about it, right? Because I think some people sugarcoat what all this stuff really is about. And really it is about an inward reflection. And now, here's kind of a very interesting point. One cannot believe in karma and evil at the same time. And that's a very profound thought to think about. And it goes back to the idea of, it's much easier to blame somebody for your problems than it is to accept responsibility. But in terms of enlightenment, really looking at the inner darkness of oneself, you have to examine that and being like, what karma have I attracted to cause this within my life? Not a simple thing. But that is the path forward. So I hope you really consider that. And I hope it does help. Because at the end of the day, whether it sounds pretty or not, avoiding it and suppressing these things, as Carl Jung would say, paraphrasing his quote, until the unconscious becomes conscious, we allow the unconscious to dictate our lives, and we'll call it fate. Doesn't sound fun. And so that's what the true journey of enlightenment really is, to discover all that is within us that makes us tick. So we have agency over our own lives. We can make the choices, the good choices for ourselves.